Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report. This is the place we bring you the headlines and the latest in black news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi.
And I'm Melissa.
On today's report, North Carolina protesters demand release of body camera footage in Andrew Brown's shooting. We have news on Daunte Wright's funeral and students from Ohio State protest in the name of Ma'Khia Bryant.
Oscar-nominated Zaria Simone is here to talk diversity and overall this year's awards.
And Alan Scott Gordon, hip-hop historian and former editor of the iconic Rap Pages, joins us, and we remember hip-hop legends.
Yes, you will. We have all that and so much more. So if you're ready, it's our voice and our truth. Let's get it.
To me, this reeks of conflict of interest.
Do we know if he actually waved a gun? We only hear one side of the story.
This just really did make me feel good that the justice system did what they needed to do.
We're going to keep following this story, and we will have the latest for you. Thanks for joining us today, Soulmates. Civil rights leaders and elected officials joined Daunte Wright's family in Minnesota for his funeral this week, paying tribute to the young man. Here's Reverend Al Sharpton letting us know he was loved by so many.
1986, in a section of Brooklyn called Howard Beach, a young man named Michael Griffith was killed because they said that they didn't allow blacks in the neighborhood.
The next part is just a prayer to the Lord right here. Sing, praise me, make me.
There were hundreds of people at Shiloh Temple International Ministries for the service. The 20-year-old father was shot and killed by former Brooklyn Center, Minnesota officer Kim Potter, April 11th, as police tried to arrest him for expired tags. Let's take a look at attorney Ben Crump's heartfelt message in Wright's honor.
I think about George Floyd tragedy, and I read Reverend Al, they said, what is the difference 30 years later between Rodney King, that we saw on video get brutalized and dehumanized and tortured by the police, and George Floyd, who we saw on video get brutalized and dehumanized and tortured by the police? And the answer was quite simple. It was the quality of technology has gotten better. But the excessive use of force remained the same. So I'll say in conclusion in this plea for justice, I remind you again, as I did yesterday, of what Dr. King told us. Because at some point, Daunte Jr. is going to get old enough to watch that video of how his father was slain so unnecessarily. A misdemeanor. A misdemeanor. Reverend Al, it's too often that traffic stops end up as deadly sentences, a death sentence. We're going to have to make sure that Daunte Jr. know that we stood up for Daunte, his father.
U.S. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the state's Attorney General Keith Ellison, and George Floyd's family members were all in attendance. I want to go back to something Ben Crump said there. You know, we've talked about this off camera, Romeo, you and I, about the difference between, you know, kind of trying to break down what we think could have been the difference between 30 years ago and now. But I watched some experts talking about just 5 years ago in the same state, Philando Castile.
Yeah.
Also, you know, a big part of this on camera we watched this. We watched the aftermath. We heard the audio. Some of the experts pointed out some things that they felt like were differences because, you know, the officer in that case was acquitted. And I'm curious if you all can see these being part of it. The witnesses in George Floyd's case, some of them were white. They were not. When it comes to Philando Castile, was a child and a black woman. And also the officer in that case did testify. He said some things like he said that he didn't mean to, and that he said he didn't mean to, and that he was thinking about his own daughter and he was scared. And also the biggest thing is that Philando Castile can be heard saying, letting the officer know that he legally has a weapon.
Yes.
And that, the experts in that, were breaking this down felt like the legally part didn't matter to people.
Right.
Yeah.
And that those made big differences just 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Brooke, you hit it right on the head. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I think that there's, a lot of different tiny little factors that played into why the jury decided to convict on all counts. And I think that a huge part of that was the diversity of the witnesses. Because if they had been all black, then I shudder to think of what the outcome would have been, but I think that it oftentimes that is counted against us. You know what I mean? Like in the storytelling of what actually happened, there's kind of like there's so much whataboutism that is that comes right after that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. Go ahead, Demi.
I just wanted to add in, Brooke, you mentioned George Floyd's family was there. On top of that, something I thought that was really powerful. There's someone that I follow on Twitter, Jelani Cobb, was at the service as well. And so he kind of gave a play-by-play about what was going on. There was a beautiful mural that was painted while Reverend Al Sharpton was speaking. We can actually see it on the camera there. That was going on. But also, Philando Castile's mother was there. Breonna Taylor's boyfriend was there. Also, relatives of Emmett Till were there. Jamar Clark, and a delegation, like Brooke said, of the Floyd family. So I think that was just all very, very, very powerful. That so many, of course, we're not going to do a Nancy Pelosi here and say, thank you for coming out and showing support for a life lost. But I also do think that there is something very powerful in these families who have all shared a loss, a very public loss, that millions of people have seen their videos, that they all have come together and kind of, on this one moment. I think that's also very powerful. And I'm glad that they came out to, I don't want to say support, but to...
yeah, it was powerful to see them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't find a good word there. I don't want to say the wrong word. Thank you. So demonstrators protesting against the fatal police shooting of Andrew Brown Jr. in North Carolina are calling for the release of body cam footage from yesterday's incident. Organizer Kirk Rivers told CNN on Thursday that protesters want to see the body cam footage to get a better sense of what happened. But according to a statement obtained by the outlet from the Pasquotank County attorney, the footage cannot be released without a court order. Pasquotank Sheriff Thomas S. Wooten said during a video statement Wednesday that Brown was fatally shot during an altercation when deputies attempted to serve an arrest warrant for felony drug charges. So a lot about this story. And of course, we've seen in the past that seeing the body cam footage, it does give us a better understanding of what's going on. I'm trying to log in right here. So there's a lot that I wanted to add to this story as well. So his aunt also made a statement and said, Glenda Thomas, she also said that they were not even shown the body cam footage, the family. Also, there's a councilman said that they plan to ask a superior judge to release the body cam footage. The governor of North Carolina, he even put on Twitter today. So it seems like there's a big push, like everyone is asking for this body cam footage. And I feel like we talked about this earlier in the show a couple of days ago, that there should be a certain day, I feel like, 1 to 2 days where the footage is just released so like that family members, right, so that family members just across the board, every state, so that family members and council members and governors and, lawyers, everyone doesn't have to beg to get the body cam footage. Release it in a couple of days so that transparency, we can understand what's going on right after it happens.
Immediately. Yeah. Forget a day, a couple of days. Immediately. That's the point of body cam footage. It is an action of accountability. That is the reality of the situation. So there is no holding on to it. There is no court order. There is no let's study it to see what's happening. Release the body cam footage once an incident like this has transpired. Okay? Complete and total transparency. That was the point.
Yeah. Because when they don't release it right away, the first thing we think is they're trying to hide someone. They're trying to build a story to go ahead and back up what actually happened. You always say we need to comply. We see so many men that are not of color that do not comply, and yet they still go home. Someone did a post of Kyle Rittenhouse. Remember when he was walking around with the gun in the middle of the street? Imagine if that was one of us, if that was a black man or a brown man walking the streets with a gun in his hand. You think the police would have driven right by?
Nope.
No. So people have to understand, yeah, we hear what you're saying. If you guys would just comply. No, we ain't trying to hear that. Because we see it happen on the other side too many times, and the results are not the same.
Absolutely.
It's just not fair.
Exactly. All right. Well, students at Ohio State University recently gathered to demand the school cut ties with the Columbus Division of Police following the fatal police shooting of 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant. Photos and videos of the protests were posted across social media, showing students gathered across different parts of the campus, including the university's Student Activity Center, the Ohio Union. In a statement sent to Newsweek, a spokesperson for Ohio State said, Ohio State supports the right of our students, faculty, and staff to peacefully express their views and to speak out about issues that are important to them. Freedom of speech and civic engagement are central to our values as an institution of higher education. The protests across Ohio State came shortly after the Columbus Division of Police released the body camera footage of the fatal shooting of Bryant. The officer was identified by CPD as Officer Nicholas Reardon, a one-year veteran with the department. Okay, so one-year veteran, the two things are so oxymoronic, I can't even get started on that. Yeah. Secondly, this is one of the experiences of, university students. It's the Union Hall, it's protesting, it's letting your voice be heard and, kind of examining, your civil liberties and that sort of thing. But Ohio has just introduced 4 anti-riot read protest bills that will, basically give stiff penalties to protesters like this. So the response by the university was so generic to me because I'm just like, so these bills transpire or get passed through legislation, and suddenly what's going to happen to the civil liberties of your student body and your faculty and freedom of speech and that sort of thing? Because that's what these bills are. They are a violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution to the highest order.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Demi.
The reality of it is that money talks. And so these big organizations, predominantly white colleges included, they don't want to lose money. So I'm really happy that these students stood up because, when we protest and we cried and we were in the streets for George Floyd, this goes back to my scripture about, things unseen. Like, we didn't know that Derek Chauvin was actually going to be convicted. We just knew that we wanted what we thought was justice. And so, these students hitting the school in their pockets, not that they hit him in the pockets literally, but also like protesting and saying, hey, I'm going to come away from school. I'm going to bring this negative press on the school if you guys don't try to help and make some change. And so I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. And we need to see more of that.
Yeah, that's why I applaud the young generation. I mean, a lot of them out there, and they're getting it right. And that video was pretty powerful, what you showed. All right, the ex-officer who killed Rayshard Brooks wants his job back. Here's Fox Atlanta with the details.
Garrett Roth was fired and charged with felony murder, aggravated assault, and several other felonies following the deadly shooting in June.
But today, his attorney argued Rolfe should be back on the job. Fox 5's Angelique Proctor spent the day covering Rolfe's hearing in front of the city's review board. And Angelique, we understand Mr. Rolfe spoke publicly, though briefly, for the first time since that shooting.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, he did, Tom, but he only talked about his background or his experience. When it came to exactly what happened on June 12th when Rayshard Brooks was killed, well, he evoked the Fifth Amendment on that. Keep in mind that this hearing really was not about guilt or innocence, but rather how he was terminated.
You shot 3 bullets at Rayshard Brooks while he was running away from you. and struck him twice, killing him. Is that correct?
I wish to assert my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, the Georgia Constitution, and state law, and I will not answer that question.
Former Atlanta police officer Garrett Roth evoked the Fifth Amendment Thursday, but made national news when he shot and killed DUI suspect Rayshard Brooks in a Wendy's parking lot back in June. The 27-year-old father tussled with two officers and took one's taser. Brooks fired that taser as he ran away. And then Officer Roth shot and killed Brooks. Video of the deadly shooting was played for the Atlanta Civil Service Board hearing as the former officer asserted Chief Erica Shields wrongly terminated Roth.
The city should reverse, or in the terms that the city uses, revoke the termination, reinstate Officer Roth with full back pay plus benefits for two reasons. Number one, the city failed to properly investigate his actions in violation of 4 policies. Number two, the city failed to follow proper procedure during the termination in violation of policies and ordinances.
Roth's attorney says Internal Affairs never investigated the charges against him, nor was he given adequate time to respond to his notice of adverse action. He also pointed to typos and inconsistencies in the paperwork that a union rep signed on Roth's behalf. But the city says the bottom line, the firing was Chief Shields' call.
And the chief of police has the authority to terminate an officer, correct?
Yes, the chief has the authority.
The specifics of the disciplinary rules require that someone have an opportunity to prepare their response and an opportunity to appear. What we heard very clearly was due to safety concerns, due to an inability for him to drive, and due to the sheer amount of time. As we saw in Gardner and Streeter, there was no opportunity for Garrett Roth to provide an employee response session, and he did want to provide one.
So 3 members of the Civil Service Board will make the final call on this. They have up to 30 days to come up with a decision. From City Hall, Angelique Proctor, Fox 5 News.
All right, Angelique, thanks.
The nerve, the audacity, the audacity.
Yeah. It's on the sales rack at Nordstrom, apparently.
I mean, are we going to talk about this or are we moving forward? I'm sorry, because I mean, I just wanted to just, you know, the fact of the you want to come back to do what? To kill another person?
Exactly.
To kill another black man. We saw this on we see you. We saw it. We saw it all happen. This wasn't policing. This wasn't serving and protecting. This wasn't de-escalating. So what would you want your job back for? He said that, you know, reinstatement with back pay.
Yeah.
The nerve of you. The nerve to even sit on the Zoom and evoke your Fifth Amendment. The nerve of you. Just the audacity. I mean, just disgusting.
I think that might be what they call white privilege.
It's absolutely trying to pull his white privilege card. But that's why we needed what happened with Derek Chauvin. We needed that to happen. That needed to happen to show some of these other police departments around the world that, hey, you know, you do some foul
That's a
crap,
price to pay.
right? You do some foul crap, you're gonna go to jail for it. And the nerve of him, it's just disgusting.